the Carver Select Board on Tuesday, October 15th. This meeting is being cablecast by Area 58 Community Access Media, Channel 15. There are openings on several committees. Please refer to the Select Board page on our website for a listing and application. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A community prayer from Mr. Townsend.
Almighty God, humbly we pray your blessing as we concern our life with the opportunity to serve our community. Enhance us with your spirit of dignity and selflessness. May we become instruments of support and understanding as we seek to bring an environment of trust and purpose among all who provide the many services become. Help us achieve the goals of our commitment in this office that is now our responsibility. And especially, we lift our prayers for all the citizens of our community that we have been allowed to serve, that they may discover the fullness and joy of life that we all seek, and keep those serving in our armed forces and our first responders in our hearts and thoughts. Amen.
Just a couple of notes before we begin. Mr. Dunham is working this evening, so will not be able to attend. Also, we did add an executive session this evening within the last 48 hours, as it was necessary for the board to make a decision on a litigation issue that is time-sensitive and cannot wait till our next meeting. Right now, it's time for citizens' participation. If there are citizens present that would like to address the board, they're free to do so at this time. We ask them to limit their comments to about 3 minutes so that other people will have the opportunity to speak. Was there anyone that wanted to address the board? Yes, ma'am. If you can give us your name and address, please.
My name is Emily Stile. I live at 195 Meadow Street. I'm 71 years old. I have prepared a 3-minute statement and I have copies for you.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I speak with respect for the immense work and complexity of public service of each of you and lots of others in this town. I have not lived in this town as long as many have, but I have lived 71 years participating in and observing human behavior. Given communication basics, specifically in regard to the intent of a communication, vis-a-vis the impact of a communication, I have a couple of questions for the Select Board and for Michael in his role as the town administrator. Number one, Michael, would you speak to your intent in writing the September 19 email to Sarah about comments she made to the Carver Reporter? I ask this question because of how I experience the impact of that communication of yours to her, with the potential it carried to once again open up conversation about a controversial process. I am, of course, only one person. Transparency, I ask for clarification from you about your intent in sending that September 19 email. Number two, given its impact of once again stirring a troubled pot, and because I know that management work involves ongoing thinking and rethinking about steps taken, I ask whether you, Michael, would like to withdraw it for the purpose of focusing on moving forward. For me, as a Carver citizen, this course correction would be a wise move to make. Number three, my third question is a clarification one, in that I experience the TA's September 19 letter to Sarah Hewins as one that a boss would send. My question, is the TA the boss of members of the Select Board. I had this same question in my mind when I witnessed the Select Board meeting months ago, which dealt with the January 2 open letter that Sarah wrote about process matters related to the playground police station. A meeting in which both the architect and landscape designer participated in a scripted format. The impact of that meeting on me, one Carver citizen, was that I was witnessing aggressive bullying behavior. This pattern feels in need of correction, in my view, which is why I ask my questions publicly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Were there any other citizens that wanted to address the board this evening? There being none, we'll move on to a liquor license hearing, Carver Square Wine and Spirits, transfer of license. Is there someone present here? If you could provide us with your names and address and your intention.
Sure. Hi, can you hear? My name is Dipti Shukla. I live in Sandwich, and I'm 38 years old.
Well, you don't have to give your age.
And Forestdale, Sandwich, I live in Forestdale, but it's a part of Sandwich.
And good evening. My name is Attorney Ian Hedges. I'm here on behalf of South Carver Liquor Corp. And the transfer of the liquor license associated with Carver Square Wine and Spirits, located just down the road at 128 Main Street here in Carver. With me here tonight is Dipti Shukla. She is one of the two shareholders of South Carver Liquor Corp. And she has about 10 years of retail experience in the liquor industry. She's tip certified as well. I think the only other thing to note as a part of this transaction is there is a pledge of license to the applicant's lender, Rockland Trust Company. And other than that, there are no proposed alterations to the location. So I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Do you have the return receipts?
Excuse me?
The certified mail return receipts from the, mailing? Or did you not have
may
you didn't
not
have an
have.
advertisement? That's right, sorry.
We had an
You had
advertisement.
an advertisement, no abutters, sorry.
Yeah, there's no butters list for this.
I'm getting the two confused.
Any questions from the board?
Hi, my name is Robert Belbin. Do you have any other liquor stores within your organization?
Yes. One in Sandwich, merchant liquor store, and one in Hyannis, Absolute Wine and Spirit.
Okay. And will you be hiring the people that
People,
work
yes.
in there?
Also on Hyannis, we have one partner, so they handling, and I'm just helping when they need it. And merchant liquor also same thing. The other partners works there, and I help them also when they need it.
Has the have they already went to ABC's commission yet?
Not until you make your vote tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
And do you own Dave's Liquor in South Carver now?
No.
No, okay. Other questions from the board? Are we looking for anything in terms of, other than they obviously have to go through the rest of the process in order to qualify? So it's a straight transfer for Carver Square. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion, we approve.
Second.
Further discussion? Being none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, next, we have Fiesta Chara, alteration of licensed premises.
Good night. My name is Teresa Bracamontes. I'm partner and manager at Fiesta Chara.
And why are you here tonight?
We expand our location because it was pretty small, so we added more flooring space, not more seating, but flooring space, and we need to kind of modify the license, amend it.
So you're looking to expand the liquor license to include the space that you opened up into?
Yes.
Questions from the board?
So, looking at the diagram that we're given here, okay, are you gonna have, is this the existing entrance to the facility, or is this going to be a different entrance?
We are using the main entrance we had at the beginning. We're using it as an emergency exit. Still, the people can use it as an entrance, but mainly as an emergency exit. And the unit 1 has 2 doors on the front, so we're using one as main entrance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. The food's excellent.
This will also be subject to approval from the Alcoholic Beverage Commission.
Mhm.
Other questions from the board? Mr. Townsend, do you have a motion?
I do. Motion to approve contingent upon having all appropriate paperwork in place with the ABCC.
Second.
Further discussion? Being none, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. We have a request for appointment. Applicant is Megan Aruda for the Agricultural Commission as a non-voting alternate. You have her application in front of you. Megan, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Very well, thank you. If you can give us your, well, I guess we have your address at 47 Bunnies Road.
Correct, yes.
You want to tell us a little bit about your interest in the Agricultural Commission?
Yeah, so I've lived on the South Shore my whole life, but out of college, obviously I move around a lot because you're renting, but I recently purchased my first home here in Carver with my husband, so we're setting down roots and see ourselves living here for the foreseeable future, so I was looking for a way to get more involved in my community here. I have a background in the horse industry extensively, both on a personal and professional level, and that's really where my interest and passion lies. I feel my experience and interest could be best served on that particular commission.
All right. Any questions from the board?
No, I just wanted you to congratulate you on your business administration.
Thank you.
Me too.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Motion from the board?
I move that we appoint Megan Aruda to the Ag Commission as a non-voting alternate.
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you for
Congratulations.
volunteering, Megan.
Good luck.
Congratulations. Thank you.
All right, now we go to a fire department update. Anticipated townwide savings due to the Insurance Services Office, ISO, changing our property classification.
Thank you. Let me just get my IT professional up there to get our program going.
And you are Fire Chief Craig Weston?
That is correct. Craig F. Weston, 17 Meadow Street.
Thank you.
Chief, is there only 3 slides?
Yeah, you can just hit it to go, and it'll do its own thing.
I want to hear how old that was.
Thank you. So, thank you for having me here tonight. I'm here with some exciting news about the fire department, but also even some more exciting news, I think, for our residents and our taxpayers. So I wanted to go through a program. You should have a pamphlet in front of you. It's just kind of my notes. It's just, as you leave here tonight, you can take and read it later, but it's just going to go through some of the slides and some things I'm going to talk about. So tonight, I'm here to present, recently the Carver Fire Department underwent a review by the Insurance Services Office, which is called the ISO, in order to survey and update the fire protection classification for the fire department and the town. We're very proud to announce tonight that we moved up from a level 8X to a level 2 rating in the department. So it's actually called a 2Y, which again, we're very, very excited about. This is a significant improvement in our rating for the town of Carver, and this is the highest rating that we know about for a call fire department in Massachusetts. So again, we're very excited about that. ISO has been evaluating fire departments since the early 1970s. They do it on a regular basis, and they do what's called an insurance protection classification. It's called a PPC, and that plays a major role when you're getting your homeowner's insurance or your commercial property insurance evaluated. So insurance companies subscribe to the ISO for their rating service, and then they implement it on their levels within your community. So ISO currently grades, if I can just hold this slide a second up here, currently grades on a scale, well, they used to grade on a scale 1 through 10, with a 1 being exemplary fire protection service, and a 10 being public safety protection does not meet current standards, which you don't want to be a 10. And again, that directly affects homeowners and commercial insurance rates within the community. We were, like I said, if I go back to that slide, we were an 8, originally an 8-9. Then we went to an 8-8X because they changed the classification. And then now, again, we moved to a 2-2Y, and I'll explain that a little bit. So Carver's new rating takes effect on November 1st, when it'll go, 2019, when these rates will go into effect to insurance companies. And the first number in that chart, which is, we're going to say is the 2, the 2 refers to 5 miles within a fire station and within 1,000 feet of a credible water source. And ISO rates your water source whether it's credible or not. The 2Y, the 2Y at the end refers to, again, within 5 miles of a fire station, but beyond 1,000 feet of a credible water source. And then you have an X and a Y you'll see up there. And again, this gets very confusing, and it took me 6 months to try to figure this out, and a lot of phone calls. I know that and a Y is higher than an X. That's basically what I'll tell you right now. So this new ISO classification is going to have direct savings to our residents in the community. And that's kind of what we wanted to talk about a little bit, part of this program. But you should understand that there were 46,000 fire departments across the United States surveyed. And they're surveyed, some are surveyed annually, some are every couple years. And only 300, I'll go to the slide that's up here, only 348 are considered Class 1 departments. And of those 348, they all have extensive municipal water systems in their community. They're fully hydrogen community, big cities. There are 1,597 Class 2 departments, which, as you see, that's where we are. We are a Class 2 department now officially. That puts the Carver Fire Department in the top 4.2% of all fire departments in the United States, which is a big deal for us. It should be a big deal for everybody. Just to put it in perspective, the town of Plymouth is a 3-3Y, if I go back to that one. The town of Duxbury is a 4-10. Wareham is a 3-3X. Onset is a 3-3X, and Middleborough is a 4-4X. So this is a huge achievement, but it's a huge achievement because the town has made an investment in their fire department. And we'll go through some of that investment, but that also comes down to, combined with the dedication of our officers and our firefighters, we've climbed to that level. So I think we met with evaluators, our ISO evaluators, on a regular basis, and one of the things they kept saying that to receive this score, certainly on a community that doesn't have a municipal fire hydrant system that's rated for fire protection and operates on a budget of roughly $630,000, is pretty much unheard of. And we kept hearing that same story over and over again as we met with them. I asked dispatcher and firefighter Matt Barrington and Assistant Deputy Chief Jesse Boyle, I wanted them to come up here. They've spent the last part of 2 years behind the scenes for me, collecting data, compiling data, putting it into books. I just want to thank them publicly for all their hours they put in to get us to this stage. So again, thank you both for that. Deputy Eric Germain, he's second to none when it comes to a lot of things, especially training. Our fire ground operations, and he's incorporated a lot of technology into the department, again aimed at this ISO, getting this ISO score. You might ask a question about, well, why didn't we go for an ISO rating a long time ago? I mean, why did we go from an 8 to a 2? And we had a strategy and we had a master plan inside the fire department, and we wanted to make sure we had a lot of things implemented before we moved forward. We wanted to understand the ISO rules and how they graded, and what we needed to do to change our structure to make sure that we would grade at the highest level we could. So we spent a lot of time doing that. And when I talk about the investment the community has made in the fire department, and we're going to talk about the returns you're going to get because of that, this community obviously came up with a new position, the Assistant Deputy Chief's position. We constructed a new fire headquarters and a training facility. We've purchased new frontline engines. All our pumps, our hose, our SCBAs, our Jaws of Life are now tested and certified on an annual basis. All our department SOGs have been rewritten and reestablished. Fire prevention programs have been revamped and re-implemented. Through your efforts, new PPE gear was purchased. Fire pre-plans have been created for town buildings, and numerous fire equipment upgrades have been made. All our training records and certifications have been updated. Response water data has been upgraded. All of this was designed to get us the highest ISO score we could. And now that we're there, we can maintain this a lot better than we could in the past. So this has taken many years to get here. Our predecessors before us have tried to attempt this process also, and now it's complete. So the biggest thing I want to talk about is what does it mean for our residents? And, you know, hey, it's an ISO score, but what does that really mean? I think first, our residents should be very proud of the fact that your fire department is now rated among the top 4% in the nation, and it's documented, and that's a fact. Second, I think they should give themselves a pat on the back. I want to thank our town administrator, our select board, certainly our department, because you believed us in our capital projects that we bring forward, and you believed us in the funding that we request. And again, it's going to be a direct savings to our community. So what we've found with a higher ISO rating, we've done a lot of research. I've met with insurance companies, both local, online, and in my research, we've met with Farm Family, Tabor Insurance, both local here in Carver. And what we're showing is, these are estimates, but with a home value of, say, $400,000, most of the time that's a homeowner's policy of around $1,500, you know, give or take. This new ISO class rating of a 2-2Y coming down from an 8X looks like it's going to be a savings anywhere from $60 to $250 per year per resident. That's a 5 to 20% reduction in cost, and I think, to me, that's huge. I mean, you make an investment in your department, and I think now we can give something back even more than we did in the past. These are estimates. These aren't facts. These are what we've learned in our research, some good research. I encourage the residents and the business owners to contact their insurance company and make sure they're going to use the new ISO rates. They go into effect again November 1st. Make sure that you're getting assessed at that rate, and hopefully you'll see the savings that we've seen in some of the examples that we have in front of us. When you calculate this over the average person in our community, our fire department costs about $54 a person. So with these savings, in some cases, you know, it could be assumed that your cost of your fire department is now zero, which I think is a huge statement to make, and something that means a lot to myself. And again, we're achieving this. We're a call fire department. We're proud of that. And we're proud to have a pretty frugal budget of, you know, a little over $600,000 to do that. So the last little part of my presentation, I'm going to go through it really quick, is I just want you to understand how the ISO process works. It's a very involved process, and it's very scrutinized by what we went through. It's a multi-step process. We had to conduct multiple field surveys with representatives that would come out to our facilities, tour our stations, look at our apparatus. ISO is a grade point system, so it's graded out of 105.5 points. And out of that, there's 4 categories, main categories they score you at. That's your emergency communication centers, your fire department operations, water supply, and a community risk reduction. And just, you know, quickly, emergency communications, that was a 10-point criteria. And in each side of these criteria, there's subcategories that go on and on and on. And when I talk about 10 points, there's categories that are 1/10 of a point and 1/2 a point. So it all adds up to this final score of 105 total points. They looked at our emergency reporting systems, our dispatch centers, the dispatcher qualifications, their training records, both on the public safety side, dispatch, and both the fire side. They looked at our equipment. In the fire department operations, which was worth 50 points, they looked at our fire suppression capabilities, both structural and other components of the fire department. They looked at the total number of engines we have, the equipment we keep on them. They dissected all the equipment, reserved pieces of apparatus we have, our maintenance records, our pump records, firefighter training certifications, and so forth. Water supply was the area we took kind of the biggest hit on. That's up to 40 points we could get in that category. And they looked for the number of underground water cisterns we had within the community. Any underground cistern is automatically rated as an ISO criteria, and they would give you points for that, because it's a known volume of water at all the times. They looked at the flows out of our municipal hydrant systems in North Carver. They looked at our private hydrant systems, like in South Meadow Village and Dedicus Cranberries and some other areas in town. They looked at how we map our hydrants and how we keep them in the dispatch centers. And they looked at all the inspection records. Finally, there was community risk reduction, which has been it's worth a bonus of 5 points. And this is where both Deputy Germain and Deputy Boyle came in, were instrumental. Deputy Boyle now doing code enforcement. They looked at our code enforcement practices, our inspections in the schools, how many fire drills we do, our investigative staff, which Eric is a certified fire investigator, and his training and certifications. And again, each one of these is broken down into a lot of subcategories kind of below it. So I wanted you guys to know that this ISO scoring system is not call firefighter friendly. We found that out very quickly as we went through it. And just to give you a little example, they evaluate your last 12 structure fires that you go to. They want all the records to go with them, all the dispatch logs, all the times, all the firefighters, all the certifications. And we averaged 46 officers and firefighters on those 12 calls. That was our average. What ISO does, and you can imagine there was some stern debates about this, ISO values a call firefighter equal to 1 career firefighter. So they would take a 3-to-1 ratio. And so they would take that number of 46 and they would divide it by 3. So out of that, we got credit for 15 firefighters on a call rather than the full 46, which lowered our point total, which we could have got a maximum of 15 points, to now a maximum of 10. So again, you can imagine there was a lot of debate in that, and I certainly pressed my opinion on that, pretty vocal. But that's what you come up against, and that's why I want to impress with the score that we got is kind of unheard of in our area. And the last thing I want to leave you with is how can we do to get to an ISO level 1 rated fire department of those 300 and something cities and towns, and mostly they're all cities. And by doing so, how could we lower insurance premiums even more than I've stated? So we need 9 additional points to be able to get to be a level 1 fire department. It is doable. It's very doable. Might not happen in my career, but it will happen in these gentlemen's career. First, we need your cooperation to continue to support us on future capital projects and our budget. And that's number 1. We have to stay where we are and try to climb higher. We need to develop additional cisterns, water cisterns in the community, in different strategic areas in the community. Every time we develop one of them in the water supply criteria, where we scored the lowest based on not having a municipal fire hydrant system, those would increase those points very rapidly, and we could make up a lot of ground there quickly. We have to look very seriously about purchasing an aerial apparatus, a tower, or a ladder truck. Those are serious points that they give in that criteria for your ISO score. So that's something that has to be evaluated. And we have to promote fire sprinkler systems within the community in our largest commercial buildings. If you have a commercial building, I'll just use for an example Carver Square, the church is a sprinkled building. So that doesn't count against your ISO score. They don't even look at that because now it's a sprinkled building. They look at the buildings that are unsprinkled, and do you have enough water to fight a fire in their eyes for that building? You know, just as an example, the Carver Square is an unsprinkled building, and that's a large building. Well, ISO looks at that's a 3-hour fire suppression rating at 3,500 gallons per minute over 3 hours. So you need to show them that you can successfully move 3,500 gallons of water every minute for 3 hours. Which we were able to come up with enough credit for about 1,750 gallons per minute via our tanker shuttles, via the new fire station cistern, with the school cistern that's buried, and some other areas. But if that was a sprinkled building, that would come off our calculation. If there were more cisterns around the area with the new police station and maybe some other ideas we have, those calculations increase the water gallonage and again, get us 3 or 4 more points on the water supply side when we're only trying to get 9 to get us to that level 1. So that's kind of how that works. You know, and just in conclusion, you know, as your fire chief, you know, I want to thank you and I want to thank our residents for supporting us. I want to thank my officers and firefighters and certainly our fire and public safety dispatchers. And again, I think this will probably be one of the highlights of my career is to get this rating for the community. This was a total team effort, and I think the board and our residents, again, should give a pat in the back because when you invest in something, you get a return out of that. And not only are you getting public safety, I think we're going to be able to make some reductions to people's budgets and stuff. So I'd ask Deputy Boyle and Matt or Jeff and Eric, do you have anything you want to add? Or?
I'll add one thing. I'm proud every day to work alongside these men as well as the men and women of our Carver Fire Department. We already knew this stuff. We knew where this fire department could perform, but it sure feels good to put it on paper and show everybody else what we're capable of. There are also so many components of our fire department that ISO doesn't even look at. It's not what they're focused on. It's so much more than just this, but this is a tremendous accomplishment for this town and this fire department and these gentlemen here. Thank you.
I'd certainly take any questions if you had, or the town administrator. Or...
Thank you, Chief. Questions from the board or comments?
I have one, really just a comment. I mean, I'm very familiar with these ratings. I work in the insurance industry, and I'll tell you, for a town with a call department with no fire hydrants, this is an extraordinary achievement, and you should be very proud. And the residents of the town, in fact, I think you're selling short some of the premium savings people are going to see, because some of the insurance companies I deal with, they have preferred tiers that you don't even qualify for when you have an ISO 8 rating that you will now qualify for. So this is really an extraordinary achievement. I just want to congratulate your entire department. It really is extraordinary. Thank you.
Bob, Sarah?
Sure. Again, I have to agree. I mean, you guys done an awesome job with this, and the savings for the residents that our fire department does is immense, and this just helps us out even more. I want to say thank you. My next one is, how much physical area do you need for a cistern? That
You know, that depends on the size, the gallonage that you're going to put in. Just as an example, you know, let's just say that the new fire station's 20, I think it's 20,000 gallons. You know, that cistern is, I'm just going to take a guess, 50 or 60 feet by, you know, 10 feet wide. And then it's probably 8 feet tall, 9 feet tall. You know, and that's just the tank. Never mind the area that has to be excavated to get it in there and get it put at the right level and stuff. So they're not huge areas. I mean, they got to go in strategic locations. They have to go in locations where it's easily accessible by fire apparatus.
actually, that brings up my next question here is, have you mapped out areas around the town that you would want to put a cistern to help with this yet?
So we are actively working with what's called an MVP grant within the community, and Sarah's involved in that, and the town administrator. We're in our third round of that. In that round of that, we've identified 6 to 8 water supplies within the community that we would like to develop further for fire protection. Of the 6 to 8, only one I think is town-owned in the area, and the rest are private-owned. And of those 6 to 8, let's just say, the vast majority, we're looking to not put a cistern, but to create and dredge out an area or a pond that's already there, an existing area, that needs to be cleaned out with the water capacity can be increased, where we can get a piece of fire apparatus to the front of that pond. So there's a lot more involved in that, what I'm saying, but I think as new buildings go up in the community, and, we have cisterns, a lot of cisterns in North Carver, a lot of the, Tractor Supply, the old Shaws, the new Shaws, the CVS, all those have large cisterns under them that we have the ability to take water out of. So we always look for opportunities when we can do that.
I kind of say that because the town's going to be selling off some properties tomorrow. Have you looked at any of those properties as possibilities of,
I did look at,
Of
I
cisterns?
actually did look at that. They're just not in areas that are good locations, to be honest with you. So I did look at some of those. Not every one of them, but I've looked at some of them.
because, you got town property on Wade Street. We have town property that the conservation owns off of Wenham Street there. There's Bates Pond Road, that property's up for sale right there. There's one down in South Carver too.
One of the things you should understand is right now we have 130 water supplies that are marked for fire department use in the community. And they're on large maps and they're digitized in our iPads and our computers in the trucks and our command cars. So out of that 130, not every one of them is good all year round. Some are seasonal, but they're all identified. So a lot of this strategically, the way we look for is where are we missing them? If we've got, 3 areas of cranberry bogs and a reservoir right in this area on, in the area of Wade Street, that's not necessarily the area we want to invest in this. We want to put them in areas where we're having trouble getting water. Like this area around, the center of our town here with these large municipal buildings, the town hall, the library, Carver Square. I mean, this is the area, one of the areas we want to build up even more than we have, because a 20,000 gallon tank at the fire station doesn't go far in a building this size. So those are the areas we're looking to improve at. We got the elderly housing out back, we're very concerned about that. Always been concerned about that and protecting them, so.
And I think that's with the police station building that was brought up, that there would be possibly one built to cover all of those buildings around this area
To
help with that. At least that's what was brought up to us.
That's correct, Bob. I think when you're looking at these from an O&M standpoint, as the chief mentioned, there's plenty of these facilities with open water bodies, which is the preferred place because it's usually a pond, it's a large supply. But where you don't have access to open water bodies that you can use 4 seasons out of the year, then you need to look at cisterns because those are expensive to put in. But as the chief mentioned, when you look around town, and they've looked at the analysis of that, clearly this whole center square around Town Hall, which doesn't have sprinklers, in the library, which has some challenges there, the senior housing behind that, the need for the new police station that's going to need some type of a cistern, it made sense when we started looking at this tying into the MVP grant to kill a bunch of birds with one stone. And that's why looking at building a 30,000 gallon cistern, again, bigger than what's across at the fire station, next to the library and to the senior housing and to the police station, made the most economical and long-term sense to really solve many problems. And that's why that has been incorporated into the police design plans.
Okay. And do you have cost on cisterns of how much it would cost to put in?
So,
what you guys would want or need?
Sure, so through the MVP grant, and again, there's a lot of people involved in this grant thing. So in this next round, the next round is gonna look at the actual designs of these cisterns. These cost estimates, it can be $100,000, if not more. To put them in and have them properly installed. And that's with prevailing wage, outside contractors, the whole 9 yards. Those estimates vary on the location. So again, we're, part of this next round is the grant, is to study some of those and get some facts and figures on them and get funding for them.
Okay, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo the comment that this is amazing, and I really thank you and your team. And you really are a team. It's very clear. And you treat the town like a team as well, and I think they know that. So, thank you.
I would just add that I
had the pleasure of bumping into our previous longtime chief, Dana Harriman, the other day, and never saw a person busting with pride like he was, knowing about this announcement tonight. Because, as you said, this has been being worked on for a long time. Efforts that were made by Dana back when I got in town back in '86 in the fire department has always been looking ahead, trying to provide the best fire service possible, and always with the safety of the residents paramount. I mean, this is all great that we're going to be getting some savings on our insurances, but the fire department has always put public safety first, and what you've done now by accessing the water supply and then demonstrating just how good this department is. I think a lot of us that have had the privilege of working with the fire department over the last few decades know the type of dedication that permeates the entire department. But I'm not sure that the average person, they know it's a call fire department. They know that you have a good reputation. But I think to have seen this from the inside for all these years and to see this validation of all those efforts and the money that town meeting, as you point out, has always been willing to support the fire department as you've moved forward. So I'm busting myself with pride at the effort and you please congratulate your entire department for just an outstanding effort to get this sort of, as I say, this sort of validation. I think we all knew how good this department was, but it is nice to sort of have someone, a third party from the outside, come in and say, top 4% in the country? I mean, that's spectacular. It's, and again, you point out some of our neighbors nearby that have full-time departments that don't have this rating. So congratulations to the entire department, and you're a great source of pride for this town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just to add a couple more comments to that. You clearly highlighted the top 4% in the nation where they're at, and again, that includes full-time fire departments. When you look at a call and they're number one in the state. No one of the community has what they have done here. I think what's also important is not only do they provide the public safety piece that they know and we've always known they've done, and take care of their equipment and make sure that most of the people in their facility, in their department, are trained to be certified trainers. But this task that you see in front of you was not something the department had to do. This was something the department put in the extra 1,000+ hours over the years as part of their strategic plan to try to give something back to the community. So again, we've always known how well they do from a public safety standpoint. But Craig and his team, I think, just to echo your points, the extra effort, the long nights, the weekend meetings that they've gone to make this happen also deserves additional credit because of that effort that was not required. And it just continues to show the leadership that we get out of this group of men and women. So thank you all for that.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Outstanding job. All right, next item on the agenda is Public Safety Townwide Radio System Upgrade Overview from the three chiefs to upgrade 25-year-old equipment. So if we could ask the three chiefs, not unlike the three tenors, to step forward.
Thank you.
We're not going to sing, though.
Thank you.
Tom, are you doing the presentation tonight?
No, I'm not.
So again, if you'd like to provide sort of an introduction as to what this is about.
Sure. And just wait again for my IT specialist to make us all look good here.
So, just for folks in the audience, we apologize, there is a little bit of a delay between this screen and that screen. So we'll probably be looking mostly at this one, but you folks will be there and you'll be just a couple seconds behind.
Do you want to start us off as far as?
Go right ahead.
Okay. You leaving already?
No.
Actually, if I could, Chief, on that, why Tom finds his way back here, just as you heard about the last analysis that the department's done, looking at a strategic plan as to how they address the ISO component, the same thing happens with the department as it's looking into its radio technology and how to communicate between all public safeties. And that's one of the most unique things about Carver, is that you have police, EMS, EMA, and fire all working together in a common system. And in many other communities, you have a lot of infighting. But here in Carver, we don't have that. A lot of that comes from the leadership. And again, I've asked them to put this plan together. We do have some of this in our capital budget. But identifying some of the safety issues that are coming and some of the age of some of the equipment, we are going to be moving this up for funding at town meeting this year, at least for a significant portion of this.
Thank you, Michael. So in your packet, again, we just tried to give you some information to kind of follow along with us. So we'll go through the packet in a minute, but there's also going to be an Excel spreadsheet, which members in the audience don't have. We'll kind of go through that, and it kind of outlines the building blocks of the program and how we've gotten to where we are, and just wanted to give you some information. So I'm going to have Deputy Eric Germain kind of start us off tonight. I want him to educate you on how our radio, public safety radio system, and some of our town-wide communication systems work. And then we're going to go through and talk about some of the upgrades that we're planning and why we're doing what we can. So, Eric, could you just start that?
Good evening, everyone. We'd like to start with a little bit of history, if you will, and some statistics on our current communication system that all of our public safety agencies use. The majority of the complex pieces of our communication system are reaching 25 years old. 1994 was a large purchase by, we talked about retired Chief Dana Harriman. Basically, in the next few slides, we're going to show you a lot of technical stuff in the long run, and at the very end is a repeater, and that repeater is what gets our messages out. Those repeaters, that last piece of equipment that is so integral to what we do, those are 25 years old. And today we can't get parts for them. They're almost impossible to repair. And so I think initially when we started down this road, it started with those pieces of equipment, and we've kind of evolved into what you're going to see tonight. The last significant upgrade to our system was through an AFG grant, a FEMA grant that we got in 2011. That allowed us to upgrade the way our towers, the way our communication system communicate with each other and then vote, and we'll go through that in a moment. We were dependent on Verizon phone lines, and for many, many years we struggled and suffered at the expense of poor radio communications. Verizon, every time it rained, the lines would go staticky, and we had very, very poor communications. So in 2011, we wrote a grant. We were able to upgrade the system from phone lines to microwave system, which is what we currently enjoy today. And that was in 2011. So as you can see, I think for the chief and myself and the rest of us, that doesn't seem like long ago, but the years are slowly ticking away, and that's getting some age to that equipment as well. I think the bottom line is, the aging equipment that we have, some of that repeater equipment in the voters and things like that, it's, they're becoming unreliable as they age. They become more costly to repair, and again, getting parts is nearly impossible. We've recently, we had a police equipment failure on the receiver in South Carver, and we had to go on eBay to buy one. And so it's pretty bad when you're buying parts from eBay to keep your radio system, your public safety radio system put together. So the proposal that you're going to see tonight, it consists of planned phases of upgrading, and we'll go through that, of the infrastructure and the end user equipment, which obviously is radios, the radios that we either carry portable wise or the radios that are in our public vehicles. And in the long run, what we'd like to do is integrate more redundancy into our system. When we have large storms and things like that, very easy to have a component go down and have failures and get into trouble. And so I think if you look in the long run of the program, the proposal, it's all to do with redundancy. Okay, so the town of Carver on the right, you can see we're broken into 3 sections. We have, right now, we have 5 towers in our system. 3 of those towers, one north, one south, and one center, those towers basically handle the infrastructure of radio communication. So anytime someone keys up a radio, those towers are all listening for the signal. When they hear, what they do is they communicate back on these, on the microwave system, and whoever has the best signal, it votes, it says it's me, and then the repeater takes that signal and sends it out at 100 watts, and that's how we communicate in 40 square miles. The repeaters, all the repeaters are located centrally in the center of town here at a tower site at 34 Main Street. The receivers, again, there's 3 of them. There's one north, one south, and one center. The dispatch centers, those are the 2 remaining towers. One here for the current police station, and then one at the fire station. Those 2 towers, although they facilitate the radio communications in and out of the dispatch centers, they also do a lot more than that with all of the other radio equipment, particularly like the police have a lot of APERN stuff, mutual aid stuff for us. So those towers do a lot of things, but essentially they get the dispatch communications in and out, obviously, which is pivotal. So please forgive, this may or may not work. So those are the 3 towers at the top of the slide, south, center, and north. And to give you an idea, obviously the fire station and the new police station, to give you an idea of how this technically is supposed to work. So, well, he's not supposed to be that big. Chief, you grew. Chief put on some weight there, some height. So he's supposed to be a little guy in the corner. So when the chief talks on his radio, the towers listen. So all 3 of those towers are listening for the communication. And what happens is, again, they vote back and forth. They say, who's got the loudest signal? So if the chief's all the way down in South Carver, even that North Carver receiver site that's 10 plus miles up the road is listening, and it hears that signal. And so what the voter does, they all communicate with one another, they go back to the center of town, and there's a machine there that instantaneous says, ooh, South Carver's got the best signal, that's the one we're gonna use. And then boop, it pops it back out through the repeater at 100 watts. And then there they go out to the dispatch centers, in and out, and back, out to the world, essentially. And not only do we do all this through radio frequency, we're on the internet, so the whole world's listening and all that good stuff. So that, in a nutshell, is how the system kind of communicates and works. What you don't see here, and again, I try not to get too technical, radio systems are very, very technical, very integral, and very expensive, especially when you put public safety in front of anything. So when you look at their proposals tonight, you look and you go, wow, but it's essential. We need radios to do what we do. Without radios, we can't do our job. So, were you going to take this slide, Chief? Was that mine?
Sure,
I think that was yours. So, any questions on how the radio system works? If anybody wants a class afterwards, I love doing this stuff.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric. So, again, there's a 4-person team sitting up here. I want you to understand that this is a bigger team that's developed this project than up here. Been involved in this is the school superintendent. We've had the town IT department, Stephen Mahoney, who have had our own staff. We've had the public safety dispatch staff. Mike Shaw back there has been a huge contributor. Our own dispatcher, Matt, and through all the different departments have had a say in putting this plan together. So it's just not just the 4 of us up here. But the way the plan breaks down, it breaks down into 6 components. And in your chart and in your book, I'm going to go through each one of these highlighted components so you understand it. So there's 6 of these highlighted areas, and each one has a priority level. And the priority levels go 1 through 4. And in your Excel chart, you're going to see there's a group of 3 of them that are all combined with a ring around it. Those are all priority 1s, okay? Even though they're 3 separate projects, we consider them a priority 1. Those are the first phase of the project. The way we looked at this is we need to develop our infrastructure and get that up to par, and then we're going to look at redundancy with the ultimate goal of getting it to the end user, which is firefighters, EMS, and police officers using the systems. In doing so, we worked with a lot of the other town departments to figure out what's also going on with town-wide infrastructure. Where is that headed? What needs to be improved? So we assembled it into one project, and again, we'll go through those priorities. The first thing we want to establish is, it's $50,000, it's a priority one, and it's to establish a radio communications maintenance stabilization fund. And the purpose of this fund is, we don't have such a fund now, but the purpose is preventative maintenance, repairs to the system, and continued modernization. And again, right now, whenever we have to make a repair to the system, that comes out of either our fire department, our police department, our EMS department, those budgets. And a lot of it ends up being funded by emergency management, to believe it. And, you know, that's going away in the near future, as far as that budget. Right, Tom?
It's going away.
So we can fund our own smaller items within our department, hey, an antenna on a portable or a battery and stuff like that. We have some budgets to take care of that. But when you start to get into infrastructure, it becomes a real problem, and we don't have the funds for that. Just last week, as Eric said, we had a problem in our North Carver receiver. You know, every time we climb that tower, it's $3,000 to hire a climber. Never mind to fix the problem, just to hire the climber. How we pay for that is always a struggle. So, again, this fund would be overseen by, we want to establish a committee called the Public Safety Townwide Communication Committee. And we'll explain how that'll be laid out in the back of your packet. We want to have it, the fund is going to be managed by Deputy Eric Germain, because right now he is fixing and repairing and upgrading all our infrastructure, all hours of the night, every day of the week, pretty much no cost. I want to give some hats off to Mike Shaw back there in the back of the room. He works with Eric pretty regularly, and Mike takes care of the police department side for any of their problems in the dispatch center, and they do yeoman's work. So again, this part of the fund would be $50,000. We look at trying to maintain a $50,000 balance in the account, and it would be overseen by this town-wide communication committee to making sure we're staying in the boundaries and using it for repairs like we should and unforeseen expenses. Just if a repeater breaks down, and we have multiple of them, is $20,000 to $25,000. And, you know, I'm going to talk about our life expectancy is already used up on those pieces of equipment. So we need this insurance policy. So again, that's the first item. It's a priority one. The next item I want to talk about is $162,000. All the pricing I'm talking about has already been quoted out via state bids, the state contract. So we have pricing on it. It's actually, there is no, what do I want to say? Escalation costs, thank you, built into this proposal. So these are actual prices as of today, not 6 months from now, not 2 years from now. But again, they're pretty good pricing. This part of the project is we want to replace our repeaters, our receivers, and our pagers. And currently, the receivers and repeaters that the deputy talked about, those are all over 20 years old. A life expectancy on those pieces of equipment is under 20 years, correct? So we're on borrowed time. So again, it's why it's a priority one. The second part is, Eric talked a little bit about voters, and we don't want to get technical, but we want to purchase a voting system for the DPW. Right now, the DPW has no voting system, so they transmit and they receive only on the center tower in behind 31 Main Street. So they have adequate coverage for mobiles, but very limited for portables. More importantly, we program the DPW frequency into every one of our public safety radios, and we do that to make it an interoperability channel. So if our system was to go down, the EMS channel was to go down, or the police channel, an officer can switch over to the DPW channel. We can switch the whole system over and use that for a short period of time. It's called a public safety interoperability channel. The problem is, without a voter, the voter allows that channel to now utilize the north tower and the south tower to listen. So without the voter, we're only getting the center of town in sporadic coverages north and south. So this piece of equipment would allow that DPW to now have full coverage, just like fire, EMS, and police do. And it would allow, if we had to go to their channel, it gives us full coverage as a redundancy. The other part of this program is fire and EMS personnel, they wear a fire pager. That's our primary notification system to any emergency call. These devices are over 12 years old in most cases. They're getting unreliable, and they need to be replaced. So we've budgeted that into this component of the project. The last priority one we have is a cost of $273,000. And we, as identified as public safety chiefs, we have identified a need to build a new public safety antenna system, put radio equipment on it, and what we call load it. Your current, next to the old fire station, behind the police station, is our current public safety antenna tower. That holds the vast majority of our antenna equipment, plus it holds a lot of town-wide antenna equipment. It holds the school repeater system, equipment for the Council on Aging, emergency management. That is coming to the end of its useful life, that tower. That was built in the 1980s, the early 1980s, and we have to look at replacing that. So part of this project is we are endorsing that a new antenna tower be placed behind the new police station. That's the best spot for it. It's going to hold our public safety antennas now, the new police department Bayburn channels, right, Chief? Those are, I think there's 3 or 4 channels with that, and any additional antennas in the future. So that would happen there. Part of this project is we want to create a fiber optic link between the two facilities that would go underground. This would be a fiber cable, addition to the town-wide fiber cable that wouldn't have to go on telephone poles, be subject to natural disasters. It would be a total link between the two stations, so that's factored into this price. Connecting the new police station to the current fiber network is factored into this price. And finally, in this price is to move the school repeater from the old antenna system to the new tower, and also to purchase some updated equipment for the Council on Aging. We have been noticing, Eric's been working with them pretty steady on some problems they've been having. They need a repeater upgrade and some mobile devices that we've incorporated into this part. So that's phase 1 of the program. Chief?
That also includes the reinstalling the 5D microwave link between the two stations.
Between the two stations, correct, yep. So that's on your Excel chart. This area right here is basically a priority 1. There are 3 components of it. Only so much can be done at a certain time period, and you're looking at the person and the person back there that have a lot to do with this project. And so that's what we're looking to do first and get that in place. And then what we do is we prioritize from there, and it's broken down into priority 2. That's $227,000. That basically part of the project is all about redundancy. We're going to extend the town fiber link. So right now you have town fiber, I believe, Michael, in Town Hall, the library, the EMS facility, the fire station, the 2 schools, and the DPW. And they're connected basically by a fiber loop, and it's a town IT structure. We want to extend that fiber loop from the elementary school, which is the hub, to the main repeater site, which has our communication equipment, to behind 31 Main Street. I think you have a thing up there about that, don't you? A little picture. We want to extend that. Well, that's obviously a cost, so that's figured into this. By doing so, we can create redundancy in our system that if our microwave link, how we transmit, Eric showed you, goes down, we can create a system that the fiber link will automatically take control and take over our radio system to get it transported back and forth. So that's a big deal. The other part of this is we use microwave system to transmit our audio, and it's called an unlicensed microwave system. We want to transform from the new fire station to the main repeater site. We want to make that what's called a licensed microwave link. And basically it will come with a license that it won't be subject to as much interference as we're getting now over our system. And again, those 2 components, the fiber and the microwave, need to be installed basically at the same time, so that there's equipment that'll go in there and tell it if one's failing, one takes over. If you do them differently, we don't get that redundancy of that failover that we're looking for in a storm or during an emergency. So that's factored into that priority 2. And then really kind of get to the end of the program is it all is gearing down to the end user.
Actually, Chief, before you do that, you still have the middle high school?
Oh, I'm sorry, did I skip that, the BD? I'm sorry,
Yep.
I apologize. So part of that phase 2 is what we're gonna do is we want to install a BDA system in the Carver Middle High School. The same system is installed right now in the elementary school, and basically it's called a bi-directional amplification system, which is a fancy way of an emergency responder gets inside the school. We can use a portable radio, and we'll be able to transmit to ourselves in the school and also back outside to the dispatch centers. We do not have that ability to do that in the Carver Middle High School right now. We have to alter the way we work in there. We have to have a person on the outside translate and make the transmissions to the dispatch centers and other apparatus and police officers. And in today's world of, you know, the chief can elaborate a little bit.
And that is a serious safety concern from my standpoint.
Chief, can you grab the mic?
The system that we put in the elementary school is fantastic. It works very, very well. If we talk about the possibility of something bad going on in that school, that we have to put police officers in there to deal with that. Our radios do work in that school, and they don't in the middle high school. We've been talking about this for years. It's a serious safety concern, and I would bump it up to a priority. Do it today, because if that happens, we need to be able to communicate. Somebody mentioned earlier about communication being a key. Well, it's super key for police work or public safety work when we go in there. So the money we're spending on that, I hope we never need it, but if we do need it, it will help save lives and to mitigate a problem in that school. So I think that we've got it as a priority too, and I understand that how we're phasing into this, but as far as public safety goes, I still think it's a priority one. We need to make sure that happens as soon as possible.
So again, that project has been priced out. We did consult with a vendor to get a basic proposal on that. We did walk to school. So that's figured into that component of this phase. Move on to phase 3, priority 3, I'll call it. That's the most expensive part of the project, but that's the end user part of the project. That's putting a standard portable and mobile radio to all one of our EMS, fire, and police officers. So basically what we want to do is standardize what we use. We currently right now have, I think, 5 different types of mobile radios, 6 different types of portable radios. Every one of them uses a different battery, a different charger, a different programming cable, and even a different computer to program them. So it's not the right way to do something. So we want to standardize. So the last part of the project would be to purchase these devices, portables and mobiles, extra batteries, vehicle chargers. But again, we have to have the infrastructure to put in place first, and then we move to this part of the project and get these all incorporated. And again, that is a large part of the project.
Chief, could you talk about the time that it goes in for the deputy and for Mike to go through and program these, and how often that programming needs to happen with our existing apparatus?
Sure. Eric, let me add that.
So just to give you an example of, some of the challenges with having radios of multiple different models. Motorola's famous for putting a model out today and then tomorrow it's no longer existent. So we have, like the chief said, 5 or 6 different models of portable radios between EMS, fire, and police to try and get all of those programmed whenever there's a change made. So one of the things I'll use as an example, every portable radio that we use in our public safety system has what we call an alias in it. We have a list of numbers. We put a number in each radio, and that way when that radio keys up, when the person uses that device, the consoles in the dispatch centers take that number and we put a name association with it in the console. So when I key up, it says Deputy C2. And then they know that it's me that's speaking on the radio. In case I get in trouble, if I'm in a building and things go wrong, I push my emergency button, all the right information comes up on the screen. So when we hire new people or numbers move around, this is just a small example, but anytime we have to change a number, total reprogramming. And like the chief said, we need one laptop to do the older portables because the clock speed in a laptop's too fast on new laptops, so you can't use it. The Motorola software won't work on a newer laptop. I mean, there's so many different challenges and obstacles. Right, Mike? When it comes to programming. That's just the portable fleet. Then we get into mobile radios, same type of issues. I think over the years, in the interest of being fiscally responsible, we've purchased a Motorola product, which is what we prefer, but non-public safety rated Motorola products, so they're business class radios, and you can't drag and drop things in the programs. They're just not user-friendly. They're more for the business use rather than the public safety use. So tons and tons of hours go into programming. You have to make a template. That template fits that one radio only. You push it into the radio, you try and push it in the next one. The software rev is too old, you have to make another new template. I mean, it's time after time after time after time. So standardizing the radios would certainly, and we're looking at some new technology in the radios that might allow us to program them via Wi-Fi. So that would take, that would make days of work into hours of work. And again, the simplest change, and we're back with our laptops and running from station to station and programming hundreds of radios. So it is a big deal. A lot of man hours lost in programming.
The final component, and we called it a future component, it was a priority 4, and we did it just to bring people up to speed on what could happen. We put a value on this at $288,000. I can't give it a ton of credibility because it's so far out, but they're items that we got to think about. Another licensed microwave link from the new police station to the repeater site. We want to upgrade our dispatch consoles, what the dispatchers actually use. Those can be very expensive. We don't need to do that right now, but we need to do it, looking 5-6 years out, starting to think about that. And then some future antenna upgrades, technology changes, so we put some figures in for that. So one of the things before you ask it, and Eric will probably go to the slide, is we tried to put a lot of thought on how we would manage this program. First it has to get funded and how it's going to get funded. But being a large program, we want to make sure there's a lot of oversight over it and we do it right. So we came up with a organizational chart that we wanted to share with you. This has been endorsed by everyone on it. So basically, just to talk numbers, if this was a $1.5 million town-wide communication upgrade project, if that happened over 1 year, 4 years, 3 years, whatever it was, if that was a number. And then we had a $50,000 revolving fund or stabilization for maintenance. So we created a public safety town-wide committee, and that's made up the fire chief, the police chief, the EMS chief, town administrator, emergency management director, DPW, and the school superintendent. They have all reviewed this plan already. They have all endorsed this organizational chart. So that committee would oversee that money, how it was being spent, and make sure it's appropriate. And under that, we divided it into 2 segments. We have a public safety communications coordinator, which we're looking to have Deputy Eric Germain do that. So that side would handle anything public safety side, implementing the project. He would work hand in hand on the other side, anything to do with the schools and possibly some town stuff with the town IT department, and that'd be Stephen Mahoney. And then from there, we break it down more. And, Eric works hand in hand with Mike Shaw. There would be a fire department rep, an EMS rep, a police rep, obviously Mike Shaw, and we could hire some outside radio consultants would be under that. And then on the school side, they would appoint a school communications coordinator and have their 2 principals from the elementary school and the high school as far as how this chart would work. And the final thing I just wanted to add, that as of this weekend, we applied, as a group effort, we applied for a community compact information technology grant. We submitted it this past weekend. We submitted it for $198,000. We submitted it, it was you had to be very creative on how you worded it, but we submitted it for basically one of the level 1, priority 1 sections, which was for all the repeaters, receivers, and fire pages, and we also added the school BDA system to that. That part of the project, we separated it out so it doesn't look like you're seeing it, came in at around $260,000. They would only fund $200,000. So to make it more attractive, we had the town matching 25%. So out of that $260-something thousand project, we're looking for this grant to fund $198,000. We submitted that this weekend. We're just hopeful. Anything we can do to withdraw this, being fiscally responsible is what we're trying to do as we move forward. So I said my piece. I'm done talking. If you guys, Michael, want to add or?
Sure. So
questions?
Just to dig into this a little bit more, the slide you have in front of us, this is the staffing committee that we had agreed to. There have been multiple meetings that have happened. Do you have your slide with the handwritten?
Oh, that is in there. Oh, you went by it.
You know, the slide presentation is very well done at this point, but that right there is a picture of what's in the fire station office room or conference room, where all the different parties were trying to look at and make this all work and go through the different issues that are in there. So there's been you know, months and months and months of work putting this together. So a couple things. One is you saw the committee that's going to be overseeing this going forward. Secondly, as we look at the first 4 projects, the first 3 were a priority 1, and the 4th item was a priority 2. As the chief mentioned, and as the superintendent mentioned, they'd like to have that as a priority 1 as well. However, it has to follow the infrastructure upgrade, so that's why it was moved to a 2. That being said, what is going to be proposed to the Capital Outlay Committee is that phases 1, 2, 3, and 4, which does include the middle high school upgrade, would be proposed as part of the capital request this year from town meeting. Most of that to be, if not all of it, to be funded out of free cash. So we're looking somewhere in the neighborhood around $750,000 to move the first 4 of these 6 items forward, which will take a good 18 months to 2 years to implement. And then we'll be looking to, you know, determine what the radios we're going to be in a 3-year period from now. So that's kind of where the conclusion is with this. If we're successful to win the grant, then great. We don't have to spend the full $750. We'll get $200 from the state. But right now, from a budgeting standpoint and moving this forward, we're anticipating moving forward the first 4 items this year at town meeting with the Capital Outlay Committee support and obviously with the Board of Selectmen support to implement this this town-wide communication upgrade that's going to be needed desperately.
Questions from the board? I guess one of my questions would be to ask, we made a major investment back in 1994, which is what we're looking to replacing now. Obviously, technology has changed dramatically since then, and we're taking advantage of that. But the world's changed dramatically too. School shootings were not, unfortunately, or fortunately, not as frequent in 1994 as what we have today. So when you talk about was it the BDA?
Mm-hmm.
That, in my mind, I would move that to a higher priority to, as the police chief suggested. But I guess my question is, making this sort of commitment, is there any way of making a guess as to how long this should carry us once this is implemented? Is this another 25 years that we should get out of this system? Is it possible to speak to that?
You know, way to answer that, I think it.
I think you would obviously. I think if you asked any radio professional, the Motorola Quantar, I keep going back to the oldest piece, the Motorola Quantar repeaters that we have, they really weren't intended to last 25 years. They were, and probably in today's day and age, probably still considered the Cadillac of what Motorola produced back then. Just like anything else, when they make something that works so well, they usually don't make another one of those because they want to keep the turnover rolling. So, you know, we would hope to get another 25 years out of something. I would say realistically, a 15-year repeater is probably more in line with what you could expect. And when I say that, I mean that's being responsible and proactive in replacing things. Not to say that we haven't, you know, we weren't looking at this all the way, but now we're being forced with the lack of, you know, parts that we can buy and repairs. So I would say 15 years is probably a good, you know.
But that's for elements of this. The overall infrastructure, when you get the new towers and whatnot in, hopefully might have. So there's going to be some with longer lifespans, some with shorter lifespans as you go through it.
I would think the, you know, once you put the fiber optics in and we start to establish that redundancy, you know, fiber technically is forever. It's just the components that fiber connects to, and you're at the mercy of, you know, whatever could fail. The radio aspect for me, like the portable and mobile radios, those are the things that, the end user devices, that those get a lot of use. There's a person pushing that button all the time, and they're here, they're there, they dropped one, they didn't. So those are the things that I think that are probably, more prone to being needed to be replaced sooner rather than later, if you want to put it on a scale. The infrastructure stuff, I think you're looking at pretty good longevity there.
And again, I'm just looking at this from a public safety standpoint, which is why which is so important. And again, you're talking about the coordination among the departments. The very fact that we have our three major departments represented here tonight, and you're speaking to the DPW, demonstrates the ability of our team to work together, and that you're all putting forth this with your recommendations. Chief?
If I could just weigh in on that and add into it, we're very fortunate we have Deputy Jermaine and Mike Shaw, who have been keeping the system going with duct tape and bubble gum for a long time. My line item in my budget is $2,000 for radio repairs, and we suck that up every year trying to climb those towers because Tom and I can't do it anymore. We're getting a little too old for it, so we have to spend that $3,000.
Wait a minute. Tom's climbed one of the towers?
No, that's a joke. But my point to that is that we've been doing so much with so little for so long, and keeping this all working, not in the way it's supposed to be done, that having this plan, all the effort that went into putting this together, I think investing in having an account that Deputy Jermaine can tap into, that Mike Shaw can tap into, to do the preventative maintenance, to do the things that'll keep this system running, I think will add to its longevity and make it work. Because, I'm down to no spare portables at all anymore in the police station. Everybody helps out whenever we can. If Tom's got an extra one, he lets us have it. We all work together, but I think having a plan in place that lets us be proactive and lets us move forward instead of, well, I'm going to have to buy 2 portables this year and see what happens. I think being forward-thinking, and as this plan is what's going to make this work into the future for quite a lot longer than what we've gotten out of this system now, without that forethought, without the money behind it, without the, like I said, by just holding together with bubble gum and duct tape. And they've been doing a great job. Hopefully we can keep them for a lot longer doing that. And I think it will work and help. That's just my 2 cents.
Last week, the Chief Dufley didn't have a radio. I asked him where his radio was. He had to loan it to one of his patrolmen that was on the front line. But that just gives you an idea of where the situation is. That's why this whole system has been looked at comprehensively as a way of, bringing Carver into the 21st century, leaving the duct tape and bubble gum behind, and just doing it the right way.
Chief Walsh?
Yeah, I just want to mention that I think this presentation, as it's been put together here, and this program would certainly be, I've been around 35 years in public safety, will be certainly a major step forward for the communications. But I also want to recognize that this whole presentation, as you might have heard how much Mark and I chimed in, is been done really by Deputy Jermaine and Chief Weston, and they deserve a lot of credit for bringing this together and presenting it in such a organized fashion.
And I guess just in the timetable for funding.
Yes.
And again, even if you got all the money tomorrow, if you get the $1,550,000 tomorrow, you can't do everything in 1 year. It's going to be phased in time.
You've got to build the infrastructure on top of the infrastructure, so a lot of the pieces have to be replaced, have to give that baseline so you can add to it. So you got to put your foundation down, which is in some of these early phases, and then you start building the walls and the subfloors and the roof in order to make that whole building. So there's phases into it.
You're thinking this upcoming town meeting, probably a commitment, looking for a commitment of about $750,000, which may or may not be affected with our success in the grant.
Correct.
And then over the next
But that'll
2 or
give
3 years
18 months to
beyond that.
24 months to implement all that. And then in town meeting 3 from now, we could look at funding the radios.
All right.
And at that point, the infrastructure will be established, and then they can make the final decisions on where the models are with the radios and move forward at that point.
I just wanted it to be clear that if town meeting gave you the $1.5 million tomorrow, it would not, you need to take a couple of years to phase all this in appropriately.
We wouldn't turn it down.
Thank you. Other questions from the board?
Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
Thanks. Just a couple of comments and a question. First of all, thank you all for putting this together. This seems like a very comprehensive presentation. I agree with Selectman Clark. I understand there are some procedural things you have to do first before this BDA system for the Carver Middle High School can be put in place, but it would seem to me that that should be a priority, because in today's day and age, I just think that's really important. And then I just have a question on the one item in priority 3, the public safety portable radios. And I guess I'm wondering, and it makes complete sense to standardize these things so everybody's operating on the same system, but how do you keep that system standardized going forward? It seems to me that, you know, something's going to drop one, something's going to happen to it, and 2 or 3 years out after you bought all these, how do you keep those systems standard as they break down?
We have an answer for that.
Yeah, so like I said, you know, Motorola for us, Motorola's this public safety rated radio equipment, that's what we buy. There are cheaper things on the market, but they just don't stand up the way the Motorola product does. What Motorola does do, though, they give you the best of the best, but they're always innovating. And technology's always moving, and they are on the move. So to your point, the model that we buy today, in 3 years may not be available, and you just have to go with it. They'll be compatible, but they may not be the same exact model.
So I guess that's the question. You know, if you need to replace 3 or 4 of these things a few years out, they're still compatible with everything else everybody's operating on?
They'll be compatible, but again, so to give you an example, Tom, I think you still had some HT1000s out there. That's a, what was it, HT1000? MT1000. Those are radios that, like, yeah, that was like cans and a string. And they're still working on our system. Nobody wants it. They come out of alignment. They don't transmit very well. I mean, there's a million issues why not to have them, but because of money, sometimes you have to have. I mean, you just have to make do with what you have. So yeah. So the intent is to someday, 30 years from now, we'll probably be back in the same boat where we're going to have portables left over from eons ago, but they just still part of the system. It just keeps moving. There's no way to. It's like technology. When you buy a cell phone, tomorrow it's obsolete. So we try to minimize that, but the realization is yes.
So Mark, just when we go to purchase these, we will buy a few spare just to have online in case that does happen, so they're all part of the same model. And then what they'll also do is you'll take the best of what you have left and pick one model line, and you'll keep that as, how do you use that as a backup spare?
Okay. Is everything you have right now, are they all one manufacturer? Are they all Motorola or someone else? Or?
Yeah, they're Motorola.
But they're all different models.
But they're all different.
But they're all the same manufacturer. So is that the key? Will, if you had something from another manufacturer, will one manufacturer talk to another manufacturer? Do you?
It can, but there may be limitations.
Okay.
I think part of your answer would be, Mark, that if we had a funding source to keep our radios up to date, and you could have some discipline at the department head level when they're buying replacements, tying it in with this group and working with Eric to make sure we buy what is as compatible as possible, rather than what we've been doing, because we've been getting by with just trying to absorb it out of, like the chief said, he had $2,000 a year, buying the cheapest thing we can buy, because it'll work, but it's really not of the caliber we should be using.
And let me comment on, can we go to the slide with the committee? Right now with all our IT purchases in town, whether it's school, town, any department that's purchasing any type of IT equipment, it needs to get approval from one person, and, you know, subject to budget and all that, and that's through Steve Mahoney. He's in charge of making sure that everything's compatible. By setting up this staff committee, the same focus happens here with the Public Safety Communication Coordinator, is any equipment that's purchased in the future for radio communications would have to go through this group, through this individual, so that everything would be compatible in the future.
Thank you.
Other questions? Bob?
Thank you guys very much. I know communication is vital in emergency services. I think that putting this out here, 6-8 years, I think is too long. I think we need to narrow this. This should be a priority for us to get this done. Because if you can't talk to another police officer and there's something going on, there's something wrong. And if you can't talk to a firefighter that's in one part of the building to another part of the building, there's something wrong. We need that communication to know what's going on in our buildings and around our town. So, thank you. I do appreciate this, and I think that this should go forward quite quickly, and we need to find the money for it. So you guys have the tools that you need to do your job, and also our men and women on our forces. Thank you.
Can I just jump on that? Bob just mentioned 6 to 8 years, but our implementation for priorities 1 and 2 is to get those done over the next 18 to 24 months. So we have the backbone to work, and it does take time to build that up. But it's pretty aggressive how we have this whole system built up. Then after that's done, in year 3 is then we'll purchase the mobiles. So I don't think anything 6 to 8 years that I am aware of.
Well, I read it here, 5 to 8 years.
Did I write something?
It says 5 to 8 years
I
here.
retract that. Where'd I write that?
Okay. All right. What page?
What page?
At some point in the next 5 to 8 years of the primary, secondary dispatch consoles located, all right?
That's priority 4.
Those are future.
Right.
Priority 4.
But that's, even that should be moved up. We're getting a new police station here. All right, we should be looking at that now, in my opinion. Thank you.
If I may, I just want to commend all of you for the work you do together and let you know how much I appreciate that. I'm not going to tell you which things to do first. You guys are the pros. That's just my comment.
And I guess I'd just add that coming on the heels of what the fire department was just able to announce relative to potential savings that homeowners in this town are going to see as a result of the hard work that the fire department's put into this. This is just yet another example of our public safety departments working together to not try to keep up, but to actually be representing the best that a community can offer in providing safety to its citizens. And that's what this communication is all about. It's about ultimately making sure that in a time of a crisis, that our departments are able to coordinate their efforts to help save property and to help save lives. And again, it's so refreshing when you read about problems in other towns to see our 3 main departments working together like this. You don't see it everywhere, and the 3 of you to be commended to come together and put this plan together in something that's going to allow the town to continue to rank among the very best in the way we respond to crises. Again, hopefully, nothing would be better than to have this state-of-the-art communication system in place and never really have to rely heavily on it. But your job is to be there for when there is a need. So, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And I think I speak for the board in saying that I think you can look forward to our support as you move forward with this project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we come to the select board update. We'll start with Mr. Belbin.
All right, so just to let the public know, I gave to each one of the selectmen a first draft for a proposed bylaw on the fence viewer and a fence bylaw. It's to look at, make comments at the next meeting or whenever we do this. This is a proposal for the next town meeting that we have. Like I said, and go through the process that way. The next one was also a proposed bylaw changes that I'm recommending to this board. Again, to bring it up in the next town meeting, the next selectmen board's meeting. All right, so we can bring it to town meeting for proposed changes. That's those two. To go
And Bob, in terms of the timing, we're going to be having some meetings coming up dedicated to getting to the articles for the and so forth. So it may not be the next meeting, but it'll be certainly as part of the incorporation of the whole process of what's going to go in the warrant and so forth.
I just want to make sure, because with the fence viewer, that has to go to planning board
Oh, I
go
got
through
you.
their
Okay.
process
Okay.
for that one, okay?
Yep,
All right,
fine.
all right, the next one is, go along with town meeting is, we need to change our bylaws, zoning bylaws, with the notations to take out the Board of Selectmen to the Select Board. We have to remember to put that in.
What was that again?
We've changed our name from the Board
Oh.
of Selectmen to Select Board.
Gotcha. I'm with you.
We need to make those notations in our bylaws and
Okay.
update all that. Next one is, at the last meeting that Michael had made a mention that he doesn't post all his agendas items on the thing, and I did look back on that, and some have been and some haven't. Just want to standardize things if. in
Yeah,
the
we did
future
check
that-
we did check with council, and while he indicated that a lot of towns don't get too technical with it, that technically the town administrator updates should be advertised and those should be the only things that are spoken to.
Yeah, okay. One of the other things is hiring employees. I know we have, selectmen don't have any ability to hire, but I think we need to really give preference to our town residents. This was brought up by a resident for me, that I think we have to really look at preferences to our town residents here. Because
Just,
they look.
Bob, on that, just so you know, we do that, and again, it's all based upon having an equally qualified person. If we have two equally qualified people, we will always try to hire internally in the town. The same thing with other departments. If we have somebody who works in another department that's equally qualified, we try to hire staff from within. So that does happen all the time. What we don't do is hire unqualified people.
Okay, I just want to make, putting it out there.
Mhm.
All right, the other thing with the town administrator, I was wondering if we can get a copy of his schedule and his calendar that we have access to take a look to see what's going on the day-to-day operations and whatnot. I know that he has one and updates it or whatnot, but for us to take a look at what's going on, I think
mean,
that would be.
we can look into see how appropriate that is, but
Mhm.
I'll be glad to check on that.
I want to thank a couple of people, Don Padavani and Nancy Megginson. They both work for our town. They both since retired. I want to thank them very much for their services to our community. They will be missed dearly in this town. And we have some new employees. I just want to know, Michael, when you have a chance, just to let us know who all the new employees are, because people are seeing new faces, and just let us know, hey, we got some new employees here. These are the positions that they're in. I want to say thank you to the police department on that drug bust in the town. Excellent job. Thank you very much. Your officers have done a great service to our community. I'd like to see some type of a satisfaction survey to go out to all our employees in the town at some point, to see how satisfied they are with the jobs, any issues or suggestions they may have about doing things differently, and to be a broad spectrum of everything. The next one is Wade Street property. When I was on the redevelopment authority, we gave it back to the town here, the selectmen, and I guess that was never, the deed was never transferred. We transferred it to the RDA, but it never got transferred back from the RDA to us. I think that was an error, but I was watching their meeting the other day, and they were talking about they may have a buyer or purchaser for that property, and I do know that Dick Ward had said we need to save that property, and I also agree. So we need to really look at the minutes that they did transfer it back to us and that we accepted it. We need to look at that. I saw that the Council on Aging has a position open for cook and a supervisor. Just want to make sure if anybody's out there that's interested, please apply. One of the other things that goes with properties is the TOPS committee. There's no agenda with the TOPS, when you talk about TOPS committee, the town-owned properties, that there's no agenda that's put out there for it to know what's going on. There's no meetings, minutes. We don't know when they meet, where they meet, and they're discussing our properties in our town. And I think that when they do meet, we need to know when they're meeting, and I think it should be open to the public to know what properties they're discussing. I think with this auction going on, I don't agree with some of the properties that are being sold, and I know we're looking at one, but the other one on Bates Pond Road, I don't think that one should be sold. Just my opinion. That's the auction one, and that's the executive session. I think that's really it for now. I think I covered a lot, but really to take note. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah?
Oh, thank you. I have a couple things to talk about myself. I know that last year at town meeting, we were told that the extended water line down Plymouth Street was no longer necessary because the Department of Environmental Protection said that the levels of 1,4-dioxane were below the reportable limit of 0.30 micrograms per liter. Now, just to be clear, the reportable limit is when the town or someone has to do something about it, right? That's a reportable limit. The detectable limit, however, is lower than that. So you can have some 1,4-dioxane in your water without it being considered reportable by the Department of Environmental Protection. And since that that extended water line was canceled, we were told that now it was okay by the DEP to do that. And also the air conditioning at the library, the funding for that was canceled. They both were transferred to the police station building, which I understood needed more money. And we voted for these for a reason, but the problem is, particularly with the 1,4-dioxane, there was at least one household tested on Plymouth Street that tested at 0.29 micrograms per liter. Now, I understand that's below reportable level, again, right? Not something you necessarily have to do something about. But I don't know about you guys, but I wouldn't want to be taking a shower in it, washing my dishes, that kind of stuff. Just my opinion. On Bob's point about some of these house lots that are being sold, so I was going back to the last town meeting. A person from the Bates Pond neighborhood called me and said, did you realize that the lot in the Bates Pond neighborhood that's going to be sold at town meeting, or there's a possibility the town meeting will allow it to be sold, is our beach? And I said, I didn't know that. So I looked through and I saw that the Crystal Lake lots were also the 3 town beaches in Crystal Lake. And so I let this person know that as well. Fortunately, a resident did stand up at town meeting and made an amendment that town meeting agreed with, that those lots wouldn't be sold. It's part of a larger point that I'm going to make. I also was informed by some Wenham Shores residents lately that they found out their beach property was going to be up for auction. They found out because there was a sign on the lot. We were told at a selectmen's meeting under the title, update, as Bob has pointed out, that this was going to happen. I don't know if you guys heard about it earlier, but I heard about it from the residents. They heard about it because they saw a sign. And I guess this whole picture that's coming out just doesn't smell transparent. We need to have, the house lots, for example, on Crystal Lake were identified by, not house lots, beaches, numbers. That was first beach, second beach, and third beach, if you're familiar with the area. And people needed to know that. I mean, some people only found out at town meeting. So I think that, I think we just need a little more transparency with that kind of process. And I'm also tired of finding out things at a meeting and then not necessarily having to make a decision about it, but just hearing about it for the first time, then going back, doing my homework, and thinking, holy cow, wait a minute. So one of those is the Great South Meadows Cedar Swamp lots that are up for auction. I don't understand why, for the life of me, the town doesn't or ask the Conservation Commission to talk to the owners of those lots and get them to donate that land to the Conservation Commission. I don't know if you all are aware, but the Great South Meadow Cedar Swamp is over 600 acres of recharge for our aquifer in this town. And it also for the entire Buzzards Bay watershed. It's a huge, massive area. Years ago, when I was conservation agent, we did that. We talked to these owners. Yes, the town wouldn't get money for it, but the owner gets a very, very tiny tax break, right? $1,000 that he doesn't have to pay or whatever. And the town gets a huge commodity of our groundwater protection. So I know I can't do anything about that right now, but I would like for that, if possible, to be put on the agenda for next week for those particular, those are the ones called MIS. That's all Great South Meadow Cedar Swamp. They're not buildable, but they are full of cedar. And it happens to be North Atlantic white cedar, which is on the, it's a list on the species there at the state. So it's not exactly a common species. And it's valuable. I don't know if, is that what we want? People harvesting our cedar swamp, our water protection. So that's an issue. And the other thing that I would like to request in the future is when citizens participate, so I was reading one of the minutes for a meeting that I unfortunately had to miss because I was out of state on business. And the woman who gave some sort of discussion under citizens participation, it didn't say anything about what she said. It said her statement is on file or something like that. I don't understand why it's not on the website, because I know public records requests are a pain in the neck for town employees to have to do. If these statements were up on the website, posted with the minutes, nobody has to do a public records request. They're right there. And they're in the public record. They've been read into the public record. So I guess that's one of my requests as well.
I've seen it done in the past. It probably wasn't done in that case, but I have seen it done in the past, and I'm sure we can request it be done in the future.
Okay. That's great. Thank you.
Mr. Townsend?
Thank you. I guess I'll just comment first on some of the auction items. So on the Wenham Shores property, about 30 of the citizens from down there did come to one of my office hours and make us aware of that property, and Mr. Milanowski was kind enough to come down and sit in, and we were able to come up with a solution. So in that particular case, we were able to find a solution. But I would agree with Sarah that going forward, we need to pay more attention to which properties are brought to auction in the first place, and maybe we need to vet these properties better before.
Yeah, more than...
I completely agree.
Correct, more than calling them Lot Zero.
I agree that we need to do more work in advance of those auctions, and I would also agree that in some cases it might be well worth our while to reach out to those residents and see if they would consider donating them or in some way making them available.
Well, if I could interrupt you real quickly. So I was told by those residents, some of the ones at your meeting, that they were offered the privilege of buying deeded beach rights to this beach that they already own because they bought a house there back in the 70s or something. Wow. And then that was discussed, and some people thought it was great and some people didn't, and then now that property's been withdrawn. But I mean, that whole thing could have been avoided to start with.
I agree.
That came to people's individual mortgages, how they bought their homes.
I understand.
Yeah, and I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to try to be one, but several residents did bring their deeds to those office hours, and they all read differently. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of issues over there, but I think the bottom line is that property was withdrawn from the auction, and we need to work on a solution for those residents.
Yep.
So that's all I'll say to that. But I do think we need to work on a better procedure for how we bring these properties to auction. I want to congratulate Andy and Maureen Cardarelli for all the work they did this past week on behalf of the Carver, the Shane Gives Thanks Food Pantry, their annual collection event for that pantry. They did a tremendous job over there at the farmers market, so congratulations to them. On October 9th and October 19th, from 9 to 2 p.m., the South Meadow Village Association will host their 40th annual Holly Fair. Santa will be arriving at 10 a.m. Admission is free, so consider attending that event. The Carver Veterans Office is hosting a Veterans Gathering at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, October 30th at the Carver Public Library. This is going to be a series of monthly meetings to share what services and programs are available to veterans in our town, so consider attending that as well. And finally, the Carver Scouts are hosting a Veterans Appreciation Breakfast on Saturday, November 19th. There's the date, from 8:30 to 11 a.m. It's going to be at Our Lady of Lourdes Parish, so consider attending that as
Mark-
well. It's a free event.
It's November 9th.
Did I say?
19th, you said 19th.
It is November 9th. Thank you for the correction.
All set?
All set.
Thank you. Yeah, the only thing I have is just to mention that the Carver Lions is sponsoring a Halloween breakfast at the elementary school from 9 to 11 on Saturday, October 26th. We are going to be judging costumes in various age groups. Our own Fire Chief Craig Weston is going to be one of the judges, along with our Administrative Sergeant Sherry Sarmento, and our own head of our EMS department, Tom Walsh, who I believe will be uncostumed, but will be there to judge. So that it's 9 to 11 on the 26th. All the money raised goes to charity.
A goofy costume was on one of these auction sites. I could probably pick up for Tom if you want.
Tom has a special costume that I'll send you the picture. I'll send you the picture later if you'd like to see it.
Ron, could I just make a quick follow-up on something Bob said?
Pardon me?
Could I just make a quick follow-up on something Bob said in his
Okay.
comment? I just wanted to point out that I like the idea of this satisfaction survey for the employees, but I want to point out that that has to be anonymous. It has to be done, you and I were going to do this about 2 years ago, I recall, and it has to be done in such a way that whoever is looking at the survey results can't tell who filled it out.
Mm-hmm.
That's very, very important.
I know we've explored that with the Mass Municipal Association, and there are different concerns about it, but it's certainly something we can look into.
Thanks.
All right, next on the agenda is the Lakeville Animal Shelter Agreement. I think this is a simple renewal of the existing agreement, no specific changes, as I understand it. We have been working with them for a number of years now, and it seemed to have been working out very well. What's the pleasure of the board?
I move that we continue the agreement, renew the agreement.
There a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion?
I just have one quick question. Is this the same agreement we signed before? Are there any changes to the agreement at all?
Yes.
The fines are, not fines, the costs have not changed at all? They haven't increased anything, any of the,
I can let you know.
okay.
I'll compare them.
No further discussion. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Just a quick update on the town hall meeting update. This has been a challenge. We, as a matter of course, just threw it by town council to ask them about what we wanted to do. And in speaking with council, he feels it's loaded with minefields with the danger of violating open meeting laws and the possibility of accusations that the board is colluding ahead of time on issues. And he's still working on it. He's checking to see if other communities have done anything like this, to see if there's a way to do it. He said in communities that actively seem to be concerned with open meeting law violations, that it's likely that someone will suggest that the board is acting inappropriately, since there's no agenda normally that would be posted with something like this. So I'd like to see if there's a workable way to do this. I mean, I don't think it makes sense to have basically do it for 2 hours and just basically citizen participation where people speak and we don't get to respond. I think the idea was initially sort of what you see on CNN, where there's a give and take going back and forth. So we're trying to find a way we can do that. It may end up that we can do it 2 select board members at a time and avoid the quorum.
Right.
So that, I just wanted to let you know, I'm still pursuing it, trying to come up with a way where we can get it done. With that, I will now turn it over to the town administrator.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I could start with just, there's some discussion tonight on the auctions and tax titles and everything. There was a lot of discussion that just happened on that, and what I heard was, unfortunately, some information that isn't accurate with state law. So what we have is, we had town council prepare, I think it was for you, Bob, about 2 years ago in the redevelopment authority, a process as to all the different things that a town has to do for tax title and when things happen and land to low value. So I will share that memo with the board. It's still relevant from 2 years ago. As it relates to the Great Cedar Swamp and some other things, those fall under land to low value, and Sarah, the conservation agent, and us and members, we have had a lot of conversations about trying to preserve that land. And again, more than happy to have you come talk to me about that at any particular time. But that falls under land to low value, so we have to go through the process that we're going through right now. There is no identifiable owner, which is why it has to go through the process that it's set forth. And ideally, what we'd like to do with that is turn that into some type of a greater park area with all of those slivers that are in there. But the ones that are under land to low value right now have no identified owner.
They're all listed as having owners on the assessor sheets.
That may be true, but we have not been able to contact any of them. That's why they fall into that category. So that is ongoing, and again, I'll get that memo out just to provide further information and clarity as to what actually goes on and what doesn't go on with that process. As it relates to the police station and playground, we're having a pre-bid meeting this Thursday. The bids are out, or the packet is out for bid. Again, that has been delayed a few months, but it is out now, and we're waiting to get responses on that. As well as the playground, the parking lot, and the ball fields are still under construction, and those processes are moving forward very well. As it relates to the 2021 budget process, we did have a meeting with, a joint meeting with the school committee and with the Board of Selectmen. In working with Meg and others, we are moving forward trying to get as much money into the operational budget as possible. One point that I do want to bring everyone's attention to is some of the OPED savings that we've had, and we do have our new OPED actuarial report that was updated on 6/30/19. And before the board started to take some action on healthcare and how that was to be funded in the future, the estimated liability in 2021 was $69.5 million. Through many efforts that the Board of Selectmen have taken the lead on, that number is now down to $38 million, resulting in almost a savings of $31 million. So if there was any reverse of trying to change how healthcare is done in the town, that number would go back up. But the point that I want to make is, through your efforts, you've almost reduced it down in half to what you originally had before you started making some changes to that. And if that isn't addressed, then that means there's additional layoffs, there's additional services that are cut, and that's why the board took those actions years ago, so you could be self-sustaining following our town meeting financial policies that were approved. I anticipate on being able to release a budget in November, and again, all the different departments are working with us on that. Moving forward, as it relates to SERPED and the Greens Community Act update, we did hire SERPED to assist us with that effort, and they are nearing completion of getting that package together. There's one item that they still need to get some more clarification on, which is the Mass Energy Insight Program that they're updating for. So that is an application process that is in process and is moving forward.
Excuse me, Bob, you have a question on that?
I just want to make it clear to the residents that the first agenda that was put out had these two items that you're talking about now in that original one, and they were not carried over into the updated one.
Right.
I just want to make sure that everyone understands that If you look online, it'll show the first one, then the revised, and the revised, and these are the two items that were on the original one that never got carried over.
Correct.
I have a question on that Green Communities article as well. The reason I asked for the update on the agenda is I believe back when we were discussing the stretch code for last year's town meeting, it was brought up that we had to have all 5 portions of that Green Communities Act completed by the end of October to be able to be eligible for a Green Communities grant. So that's why I brought it up. because
Yep. That's all in process.
So do you think we're on target for the
We
end of
have been
October?
told we are on target. Just a couple minor things need to be done, but that's why we have Serped taking the lead on that.
Thank you.
The next item was the Center Street issue on trucking business update. That's really being reviewed right now by legal and with staff in trying to get some additional documentation. That's all I can comment on that at this particular point.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see, we'll now go to an entertainment license, the Crane, it's the Crane Tea Room, not the Crane Brook Tea Room? The Crane Tea Room Restaurant, DBA Crane Brook Restaurant. Thank you. What's the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion, we approve it.
Second.
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? I've had some very good reviews of it from talking to people that have been there. The minutes, we'll start with the minutes of September 3rd. What's the pleasure of the board?
Thank you for sending them out. I appreciate it very much. I'll make a motion for September 3rd to approve it.
There a
Second.
written? Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. What's the pleasure for the board on September 17th?
I'll make a motion again for September 17th to approve as written.
And I have to recuse myself because I was not here.
I'll second.
Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it.
401.
401, yes.
No, that would be an
Three.
abstention. You're right. You're right.
Pardon me? Oh, 3, yes, I'm thinking Alan's
always
over there.
matter.
Alan's been so quiet tonight that I forgot he wasn't here.
Thank you.
And what's the pleasure of the board for the minutes of September 26th, which was our joint meeting with the schools?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Further discussion?
We're using this for both, right? Our one set of meetings are for both us and them? Excellent, thank you.
Any revisions they had are in these minutes.
Right, thank you.
I'm aware.
Motion made and seconded. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Our next meetings will be our regular 2 meetings in November on the 5th and the 19th, and in December on the 3rd and the 17th, although I would ask you to start, we will try, and because Bob, especially I know since you have, work on Tuesday nights, we should try to post get a schedule out as far ahead of time as we're going to have any extra meetings for budget purposes and so forth, which normally happens a little more after Christmas, but just try to have that out there, laid out as much as possible for the benefit of all of us to make sure we have the time available.
Thank you.
Okay, so, if, Mr. Townsend, if you could read the motion to go to executive session, and I will add again, as I mentioned at the start of the meeting, it was not anticipated that we would have this executive session this evening. However, we became aware of litigation that we needed to respond to on a timely basis, and before our next meeting, and so therefore we will go into executive session for the purpose of the litigation. Mr. Townsend?
I make a motion to move to go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, the Ravenbrook landfill in North Carver, that may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the town if held in open session as declared by the chairman, and to reconvene in open session for the purpose of adjournment.
How say Mr. Bellman?
Robert Belvin says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Ron Clark says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Thank you all for joining us this evening. We'll be back on Tuesday, November 5th. Have a great day.